Good evening, everyone. My name is James Jones, and I am the president of the Reinvention Center. With me as co-hosts and members and staff of the Reinvention Center, I have Maurice Clifton, who is with the Reinvention Center, as well as Sale with Sippy. I have Lisa Riley, who is with Breaking Silence and the Reinvention Center. And tonight we come to you with part two of relationships while in prison and after prison. Our objective is to educate everyone at all times, not to glorify any actions that we may have done in the past while we were in prison, while we were young, and everything. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there, men and women, that want to know when they may be getting taken advantage of in prison, or when people come home from prison. There's no. I would start off by saying there's no one answer that I can give anyone that may help them in accomplishing their goal or their feat, or trying to figure out what it is they're trying to figure out. But I think together that we can come up with a basic understanding of what we may face, you know, um, when family members come home. And this is a subject that it can go in different areas. So we may discuss this again next week and the week after, because it's about family coming home, how the relationships when your family coming home, the relationships with your children while while you're in prison, and so forth and so forth. So please, understand that tonight, last week we had individuals that were speaking, and we were speaking on relationships while in prison, and we are trying to attempt to help guide people who may be in relationships, and guide them in understanding, that what it takes to be in that relationship, the challenges and the tribulations or the obstacles and things that you may encounter while in these relationships on both ends. Because it's challenging for the individual that's in the inside as well as the individual on the outside. So with that being said, again, I'm going to allow the co-host, Mr. Clifton, to introduce himself, and then after he does that and say whatever he would like to say, we will move on and continue on with the topic for today. Good evening, Mr. Clifton.
Hey, what's up, Mr. Jones, Bambi, Lisa, and everybody who's on the sound of my voice, or those of you alive. We talked about relationships in prison. Well, I'm Maurice Clifton, and I'm with SAIL, Sippy's Advocacy Edition and Leadership. My YouTube channel is SAIL with Sippy, so you can subscribe to there. But I try to share most of the shows that we do here on my YouTube channel, and this is a continuation from last week, and we were talking about relationships in prison. So there's no one defined methodology to where there's a successful relationship. It takes work in and out of prison, whether you're inside or outside. It takes work. So we just want to, I guess, I won't say expose, just bring to light some of the things that are going on, behind the scenes and things, and how if you're on the outside, can tell if a guy is serious or not. And if you're on the inside, how to stop playing these games and misleading these people who are on the outside. So it's always an honor to be here, James, Lisa, and everybody else, man. So I'm looking forward to it. Let's get it.
As I said before, there's no one answer that can fit it all. But our objective is we don't want to see anybody hurt at any faucet. Whether it be a male or a female. And it's not about us, giving up game for individuals that's in the inside that's doing what they're doing. I just want to educate you to a point where it wakes you up and say, hey, I shouldn't be doing this here. We want to bring it to your conscious. As I said before, last week there was, a lot of people wants to know how is it, or how can it detect if a person that's in prison is not actually taking advantage of them, or just using them to get through their plight. That, I would say, I would say that you got to start with prayer. You got to start with prayer, and let God lead you in the direction of what He has for you. And a lot of us, we choose our mates opposed to letting the Creator choose our mates, and that's the first step to going wrong. I understand that. For both parties that's involved in the relationship, they're getting something out of it. I've heard a lot of people say that one user or the man inside the prison uses the person on the outside, or the woman inside the prison uses the man on the outside. I think that use goes both ways. I think that both parties are looking for something and searching for something, and that's why they both were in the places they were to be able to connect. Now looking from the man perspective, I look at it like, there's definitely, just because we go to prison or individuals in prison doesn't mean that they don't want no companionship. They don't want to feel loved. They don't want someone on their team. Oftentimes, for male and female, when you go to prison, the person that's with you, depending on how much time you have, may not be willing or able emotionally. I'm not going to say willing, I'm going to say able emotionally to deal with or handle this journey that has been put upon the individual that's in prison. So what they do is they say, okay, well, hey, I can't handle this. They're straightforward. I can't handle this, and they move on. You know, um, at that point, that leads to the individuals in prison having a need for companionship, because everybody in the world wants companionship. Everybody in the world wants a mate. Everybody in the world wants to feel loved. Just because we go to prison or someone goes to prison, that want, desire, or need doesn't stop. So excuse me, that's why they reach out through the pen pal sites and stuff like that there. Okay, now I would say that yes, you have some sincere people in there, and yet, and no, you don't have no sincere people in there. Only you, the person that's inside a relationship, can actually gauge what's real and what's not real. Again, there's no one thing you can look at and say, hey, this is, this person's playing games. But I always use the method, or I always say, relationships, and I stress this, are like investments. You put into it and you should get a return. If you're sending money, you're visiting, you're accepting phone calls, and you're doing what you're doing, you should be getting something back from that person. They should be calling. They should be sending cards. They should be doing whatever they can to make you feel special, because that's what it's about. If both parties making each other feel special. So for me, what I used was the gauge of the investment tool, which is if I want to buy stock, I'm looking for a return. If it doesn't give me the return that I want, you know, um, you can give me a return, but the key thing is what I want, or what my standards or what my expectations are. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my losses and I'm going to move on. You know, um, so I know it's hard. It's going to be hurtful. But you got if you feel like you're not your needs and your expectations are not being met, something you have to do. I commend all the individuals out there that take the time out to reach out and write to people in prison and show love for them individuals in prison. You know, and I tip my hat to especially the women that went to prison with someone, meaning was with a person before they went to prison, and rode with them while they were in prison. I tip my hat to those women because they're very commendable, very strong, exceptional people. Everyone that's in a prison relationship is exceptional, men and women. So don't think that I'm just choosing one side, because that's not my agenda. But I wanted to say that you have to always be careful in your relationships. Know what you're looking for. Know what you're looking for, and then we're going to go from there. And go from there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to allow Miss Riley, Lisa Riley, to share her story or her opinion of this topic. How you doing, Miss Riley?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you great.
Okay. Well, I want to tell you, I seen this from all angles. You know, uh, my loved one's incarcerated. I was incarcerated. And it's tough. It's really tough. I agree with everything that you said. It's an investment. I really agree with that. But I was sitting here thinking, about my children when I was incarcerated. I try to parent from the phone. You know, uh, I'm not sure if a lot of people understand what that means, but I try to tell my kids what to do and to be a mom from the phone. It was really stressful. It was really hard. So I think in any situation, it's hard, whether that's a parent or a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, and I think at some point you have to really slow down and think of what is best for you, because we all have that point where we hit the wall and we're so stressed out, you know. But that's what got me thinking. Now for myself, I'm not going to say everything is roses with my loved one, because it's not at times. I want to jump through the phone and beat them up. But I've been to prison, and I kind of know what he's saying. And some things just don't get by. There's so many women that have never been to prison, have never talked to anyone that's been in prison. So, on the other half, that person talking to them, why would they not believe them? So I guess a lot of women are looking for, what is the secrets? What are the secrets? I don't think there are any secrets other than, like you said, Mr. Jones. You have to look out for yourself. What are you getting out of this relationship? How is this affecting you? How is this affecting your happiness? So, but that's just what I was thinking there. So I'll go ahead and stop from there.
Okay. Since you brought up the topic of relationships with children and trying to parent from prison, that's what we're going to touch on tonight. We'll start off with that there. You know, I was once told when I was incarcerated that you cannot replace presence with presence. Because I always felt like that. Hey, as long as my motto when I first went in was, regardless if I'm in or out, my child is not going to need or miss anything that he or she would miss if I was out, if I was home. So I found myself trying to um, acquire funds and money to make sure they have for birthdays, make sure they have for this, and every time they ask me something to try to get it, trying to replace or substitute that with my presence, the absence of me, and that doesn't work. I've learned that on firsthand that it doesn't work for everybody. It may work for some, but it doesn't work for everybody. So that's good to do. As a responsible parent, you still have an obligation. You're still responsible for the child. Um, so with being said, you have to do what you have to do. I have someone raising their hand, so I'm gonna stop right here, but I'm gonna come back to that. Lower your hand first, and then not you, where you go. Oh, go ahead and mute yourself. Unmute yourself, Mr. Jones. Go ahead, sir. How you doing?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Hear you great.
Pretty good. I hope everyone is well. I'm pretty good, pretty good. I not gonna go off topic, but I want you to know that information that you, Mr. Clifton, and Mr. Parks dropped about inmates that are currently on house arrest having to go back to jail. Boy, that's crazy. Another time we need to talk about that. That's crazy. I'm like Mr. Clifton, catch me if you can. Catch me if you can. Today's topic, Derek. And I'm trying to do right. But if you let me out on house arrest, and now when COVID is over, you talking about you taking me back to jail, and I haven't violated? Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I'm happy that you're talking about some of the things that you and I discussed about relationships, not so much romantic relationships. My perspectives, my relationships are usually with my brothers that went to prison and or my family members, not romantic relationships. And I have concerns, questions, and I'm curious to hear other people's interactions. When do I feel like a brother is taking advantage, or a non-romantic relationship when it's not good, not healthy? When do we fall back? Derek, I know you, and I know my other brother, Kedrick, and a lot of you people on the panel that have been to prison are hustlers. Y'all get money. So now when you go to jail, if you continue to have a need, or you always, is this real? Is this, you've enlightened me to how little money y'all make in jail and how much they charge for everything. Just experiences with you guys. I've been to jail, not prison, but you enlightened me. You opened my eyes to a whole bunch of craziness that I think is that I didn't know took place. You work a man for $5 a month. You tripping. Things just a whole bunch of other things. But that's like what I'd like to hear. Experiences, interactions, not so much romantic, because believe it or not, and I'm simplifying this, I find that easy, to address, because that's a choice to have a romantic relationship with somebody. But a brother or a sister or a cousin, it's not really a choice, so I have to truly decide how much I want to invest. So, it's hard for me to tell my brother no if I'm on the outside and I got feet under me and I got a will to get a way to get money. and he expresses a need. So I wonder what other people's experiences, interactions, what their advice would be. But a romantic relationship, like you say, Derek, it's an investment. That's easier for me, my personality, my style, my whatever, to say, okay, that's enough, young lady, or that's enough. I don't choose that. You're not making me happy in that regard. And I know she has limitations if she's in prison, but I've not had the pleasure of or the experience of dealing with a person on a romantic level from prison. So that's really what I want to talk about, or I'd like to hear, not necessarily talk about. I'd like to hear some of that, even if it's not today. I want to hear how other people address that, because I found that to be challenging. Trying to balance out wants, needs, and you know, and like I say, these same individuals, when they were on the street, they get money. So I'm kind of assuming a lot, and I'm hoping they're not working illegally in jail. But I know that, let's say, James, Derek, you get money out here in the streets, man. You didn't lose your hustle because you went to jail, and as you point out, you did your legal and you had 4 or 5 jobs, so, and you're a bad example to say that you asked for money, because you didn't, you know. And I just want to put this on wax, because I'm so proud of my brother James. I don't know if this is common, but I thought it was uncommon, because me and my homeboys on the outside often spoke of this. When my brother was in jail, in prison, he was paying child support. He was paying child support. I wanted to say something to Mr. Williams, and I shouldn't. No, I'm take that back. I retract that statement. My brother paid child support. He set up an arrangement with the mother of his child, and he ensured that she got a very, very small amount of money legally every month. And then he did much more than that, So I'm so proud of for that there. And I thought that was strange. And at the time I was immature, and my attitude was, I ain't sending no money out of jail. I ain't sending no money out of jail. But I didn't have children then, and evolved into a different person. So that's my thing. I really like to hear some interaction, as Ms. Lisa Riley was saying, about non-romantic relatives, because that's my challenge, and that's what I have to balance sometimes when somebody asks me for something. I be saying, man, this dude, what's going on, man? That kind of thing. But that's it. That's
Can I
it.
touch on the James?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, brother.
I like to say, first of all, man, he brought up something like he took this relationship thing in a whole nother direction. I hadn't even thought about that. Family relationship. Like, so excellent point. A relationship is a relationship. It doesn't have to be romantic. Now, you asked, you know, was it real? A lot of times, man, God, well, no, I'm not even gonna say God. We ask for money because we might have something else going on in there. Believe it or not, there are guys in there with drug addictions, gambling addictions. It's very popular, gambling. And then you might have your loved one might run up a bill at a poker table, or he might owe the bookie money. So we have currency inside of there. Like everybody has a hustle. Some people are not good. They're not good hustlers. They come in there with the same mentality they had on the street, owing people, and unfortunately, families are left to carry that burden a lot of times, and women. So that's another thing. It the relationships evolve when you got a person like I was always told there are 3 type of people. There are givers, there are takers, and there are matchers. Givers are the type of person who gives freely of themselves. They feel more comfortable giving. Then you have takers. They're the type of people who always give me, give me, give me. They want something. They want something. Then you got matchers. If you give them something, they're gonna give you something back of equal value, because they don't want you to feel like they don't want to feel indebted to you. So what type of person are you dealing with? When those people go into prison, they take those idiosyncrasies with them. Their characteristics don't change, so they become a lot of times they become they use their family, man. Like I've seen guys in there run up bills, and because they have family who enable them. So you have to be careful not to become an enabler. I'm sure Mr. Clifton has witnessed it, Mr. Jones. Guys who come in there and they're spoiled, man, like they're spoiled brats, and they rely on their family to do everything. They won't do anything inside. And it's unfortunate, but yeah, a lot of families are getting used by their loved ones who just come in and they're just spoiled. They haven't changed. Evidently, they were doing the same thing in the streets. But then you got guys like myself, and I think Mr. Clifton, Mr. Jones, who said they ain't never make a collect call. I didn't believe in call a collect. I'm not gonna be a burden to someone. But then you got people who want to save their money and always call collect. You know, so it really just depends on what type of person or individual you're dealing with. That's commendable that James was able to pay child support from inside. And a lot of times I think that might be even court ordered if you get a unicorn job. I'm not sure, I might be wrong, but man, they will what is it called when they hit your money? Garnish.
FRP. Let me say this before you go
Yeah.
forward, though.
Okay.
Your sound is popping when you speak.
Is it?
Yes, sir. So you might want to check into that. While you're doing that, I'm going to speak on that. If you go in Unicore, no, they do not automatically put you on child support. What they do is they tell you if you go to Unicore, you have to give up a percentage of your income. I forget what that percentage is because it's been a while.
50.
50%. Okay, so they're telling you that you
50%?
got to get, yes, it's still popping, sir. I don't know, you got to turn it down. May need to turn it down, but
Oh, that's what it is, yeah.
they're telling you that if you work at Unicore, you have to give up 50% of your income towards any financial obligations that you have, which is what they classified as the FRP, Financial Responsibility Program, which is the program where they sit you down and say, okay, you have child support, you have court fees, you have whatever, you have all these orders against you, and every month you're going to pay some money toward all of them. That being the case, they tell you if I get a regular job, I only have to pay every 90 days. Every quarter, I have to pay a certain amount. They may say pay $25 every quarter if I get a job as an orderly. The thing about that is I may not make but $5 or $10 as an orderly a month. So I'm not even making enough money, or whatever I'm making is going right back into the system, because I'm paying this FRP. Now they'll say that they want you to to pay based on like I say, the Unicore. However, I want everybody to know this that's listening. If you have a loved one that's in the federal system, this applies to the federal system. They're going during the holidays, this time of year, and during income tax time, they jack their fines up tremendously because they're trying to find ways to get your money, the family members' money. So where they may have been paying $100 every so often, now they got them paying $300 a month based on the money that they have coming in. Because during Christmas time, during holidays, what's happening is we are families are blessing their family members. They're sending them more money than they normally do. Income tax time, they do the same thing. So you have to be, not you have to be, but I want you to be aware of the fact that this is what they do. So you can understand when you say, hey, I just sent you $300. Where did that go? Well, they took 200 of it out the gate, and then a pair of shoes that cost $30 here in the street is costing us $90 inside of the institution. So I just want you to be aware of that all the time, all family members are not running game on you. You have a whole lot that do, but not all family members are running game on the family members. So you'll be amazed at the prices. And what I'm going to do one day is I'm going to get a commissary list from one of the institutions, and I'm going to let y'all know what the prices are, because when you see that, you'll be like, wow, are you serious? Because I think it's a bar ivory soap or two. I think it's like $2 a bar or something like that there. And and these are, but I will get that back to you. But let me go back to what the topic was. When you're dealing with family members, as my other brother has stated, we have family members as well as myself that has been incarcerated. My brother, particularly, my younger brother, has been incarcerated, and because he's incarcerated, I want to make sure my family members taken care of. And because I want to do that, when he calls me and say, hey, I need this, I'm going to empathize with him because I've been where he's been at. So I know what happens and, what it takes to make it in prison, and to live somewhat comfortable, so I was sending him, packages and stuff like that. But then it seemed like every week he's calling and saying, hey, I need a package, or hey, I need this. And I have to tell him, hey, you can't live like you are John Gotti in the prison off of my money. I get up and go to work every day. I'm the guy that John Gotti is extorting, and you acting like you John Gotti trying to extort me out of my money. So you have to be kind of careful, be more knowledgeable. My advice to you would be get more knowledgeable of what things cost in there, So when they're asking you for money, you can have a better understanding of what it is that they're doing. Actually, family members, send me a copy of a commissary list. Let me see this. Let me see that. If they are sincere and not trying to beat you, they should have no problem doing that. That's just my opinion. I'm waiting on Mr. Parks to come back in. Mr. Clifton, you have any thoughts on that there?
I think that for the most part, in prison, it takes a relationship. One thing you have to do, you can't box that person in. When you continue to box that person in and try to monitor their every move, then it puts more stress on you, her, or by your relationship partner and everything. Another thing you have to be mindful of, you have to be mindful of that the distance, man, it's hard to overcome that distance and the physicality of the relationship. So you have to do extra things to ensure, that person, know that you're thinking about them, that you love them, and things like this. And then, the main thing is you got to do what you say you're going to do in both sides, inside of prison, the person in prison and the person outside of prison. So, you have to keep your word because your word is everything. Once a person knows that they can depend on you for anything, not just necessarily for money, because people look at money as just a small part of a relationship in prison. I think, for me, it was pictures. Pictures always uh, kept me going strong. So that's the thing. Just my loved one sending me pictures. So the biggest thing when we just got to keep our word, man. We got to keep our word, and we have to put that extra mile, and we can't take it for granted because the person is choosing to give themselves to you while you are in prison. So you have to respect their relationship as if you were there right there in front of that person. You got to continue to feed. It's love is a nurturing thing to where both people have to feed each other in order for it to grow. It's two gardens because you're apart. It's two gardens and two different plots. So I got to nurture her garden as well as her. She has to nurture my garden inside of prison. She has to find ways to nurture my garden inside of prison so that our love could grow and flourish until so that when you come out, there won't be. Then it's still the meshing of the two things, bringing the two plots together and transplanting, your love to their love and putting them in the same field. So it takes, like I said, it takes work. You know, as a, you can consider yourself a farmer. It takes work daily. You have to get up every day with the intention of finding a way to make your relationship better. And a lot of that takes you looking at yourself in the mirror and saying that this is what I really want. What is it going to take for me to make this person happy? You have to talk to that person and not be about me, me, me. You know what I mean? So you have to look and see what that person want. What does it take to make that person happy in prison without the physical part of it? Because every human being craves the power of touch. So us being in prison without, if you're far away from that person, Jane, we've been so far away from home to where it takes a gang of money to come see us. You know what I'm saying? So till you can be able to come and physically see that person once a month or once every so many months, man, you got to do a lot of work in between time in order to maintain that level of high and for it to keep getting higher and higher. You don't want to become stagnant. Once you become stagnant in prison, then you lose interest, then you losing the battle. So it takes a great amount of work, man, on both sides, man. I just that was just one of the things that I wanted to do. I wanted to once I found that person that was worth putting in the work for, then that's what I tried to do, on a daily basis. I had to get up with the mindset of feeding and nurturing her soul and building her up. I wanted her to see what I saw in her, not just what she saw in herself, but what I saw, the greatness that I saw in her. In the same way the greatness, the potential that she's seen in me, I had to live up to that potential and even then some. You know what I mean? So because I'm a person, I was caged in, not with the not with the definitive time or when I was going to get out. So it took, that was But one thing I didn't do, I never boxed her in and say, "Oh, you gonna stay with me or you gonna do that?" No, man. I just trusted the process and trusted God in the process and put in the work to where if I know one thing that if she had walked away, then I know I gave my all, but I know I wasn't going to be selfish to try to make her stay in a relationship that she wasn't sure when the time when the time was right. But it could have only been God that brought us to where we are now. So your sister James. So you know, but that's it. It takes work, man. It takes work.
Definitely it takes work. It takes works on both halves, like you said. And I believe that happiness begins from within. So happiness starts with a person first. Nobody can, instill happiness in you. You have to have it in you first. And what that person that you choose to have in your life is should be doing is enhancing your happiness. You know, but again, it starts with you. So as Mr. Clifton said, I would, urge people to get up like he did every day and think of a way to put a smile on on that special person that you have in your life's face, whether it be a card, whether it be a phone call, whatever it is, you can do. We know that we're in there. We do make a couple of dollars. We don't make a lot, depending on where you work at. You make more than others, and sometimes you can send flowers out. You can send the flower companies, and now the system has gotten it to where um, they're trying to make as much money at the prisoner off the prison as much as possible. So you have a lot of organizations that will, deliver things for prisoners. I can send to a place and they can buy a gift. They send me a catalog and buy a gift and they'll send it to her, or him, whatever the case may be. Because I don't want to just speak on the man in prison. I want to speak on the women as well. It goes both ways. So, with that being said, we just have to continue, like you say, to work. I want to move on to a slightly different area of what Mr. Jones was speaking of earlier. And I'm going to ask you this, Mr. Clifton, because you were the last person to experience this on this podcast. Um, how was the relationship transitioning with the relationship with your children coming from prison, from being gone so long to actually being home with them now? Um, does it seem odd? Does it feel odd? Does it feel like you never lost a beat? If there are challenges in the communication, do they show somewhat frustration still? Let me say it that way, because I know that my child loves me, your child loves you, everybody's child loves them. But there's some angriness, there's some bitterness because we wasn't there. Let me say it that way.
Yeah.
How was it for you?
Well, the thing for me, James, it wasn't difficult for me because what I did in prison, I never met, no matter what my son was, my sons were, I found a way to call them for their birthday. I found a way to send them cards, and I found a way to communicate with them when they were going through their little situation in church and in the streets. So how could I tell them not to try things that I tried that land me in prison? I just only told them the consequences because the more if I figured if I told him not to do that, then he was going to be like, okay, well, Dad, you did it, so I had to let him know. But this is the end result. So what I did was I had a line of communication open to my kids from the time that they were small and to the time that they were. And what I did was I recognized all my kids' talents while I was in prison, so I fed their talents. When I got my unicorn money, man, I used to do a lot of stuff for education. I got them to do book fairs to where they would bring in scholastic books, and I would send them books to feed their creativity. One of my sons draws, so I always send him drawing books on how to become a better artist. One of my sons cook, I would always send him, cookbooks all the way up until he got big. One of my sons had a creative mind in marketing, so I always sent him books. I sent them books. I fed things. I sent them things from prison to let them know that just because I'm incarcerated, and I always sent them money for their birthday and things like that. But I also realized that while I was away, they were becoming young men too. So you know, I couldn't chastise them the way I could outside, for not because they wouldn't allow it, but because I wanted them to know that, hey, I want to guide you into being a better man. So when they had their relationships, I always talked to their girlfriends and everything and work because I wanted them to feel like I was a part of their lives too. And so my youngest son right now, the young lady that he dated in high school, they ended up getting married. She sent me pictures. So she always asked me what I needed. I told her, well, I want pictures of you and him and pictures whenever y'all get married or whatever, pictures of my grandkids and stuff like that. So she always did that. So coming home, it was like I was never gone. You see what I mean? And so we were able to have these conversations. They actually drove to Mississippi to see me as soon as I came home because it wasn't awkward communicating with them. I've been up to Indiana to see them. I hadn't got a chance to go to Illinois to see my oldest son, but he's been out here a couple of times to see me. But we were able to sit down, face to face and have these man-to-man conversations. And I always listened to the ideas. I didn't never force my will upon them. You know what I mean? That's the one thing I learned in prison, man, that you know, uh even though in the street I was somebody, I was somebody like you were too. But I learned that, true power is empowering the people to empower themselves. So I always encourage them to stand off and be their own businessman. So I try to build a platform to where I build them up, not just necessarily not not lift them up, but enable them to build themselves up and become so in that way they respected me more because I never tried to guide them into what I wanted them to be. So many times us in prison guide kids into what we think they should be. You know what I mean? I want them to find their dream and their calling and nurture them and lift them up in whatever they want to do. But it takes time because you got to juggle each one of them personality. And I was always there. Listening is a ministry too. I tell people that often. I always listen to them and how they knew I was listening to them, but I can always recall a conversation that we had with them, with each individual one, and then, different things they said and were supposed to do. I try to hold their feet to the fire, and let them know that I was listening to them. So man, it's been a blessing, man. I still talk to them. I don't talk to them as much as I would like to because I have so many things going on with myself and my organizations, things that I want to accomplish in my lifetime. You know what I mean? And build a foundation to myself. And I didn't want to be a burden on them because, they would help me at the drop of a dime. But I didn't want to come home being that to them. You know what I mean? I figured that I had enough hustle like you did, like me and you, that we could build up our own selves and become the men that we were destined to be before we took that wrong path that landed us in prison. You see what I'm saying? You know.
It's unfortunate that a lot of individuals, a lot of people that's in prison can't watch these shows. I wish they could because I want to convey to them that doing certain things doesn't make you less of a person, or for the lack of a better term, it doesn't make you a sucker or you're sweet or nothing like that. There, you're doing what you're supposed to do for a person that you care about. So you suppose if you care about a person, how you looked upon by your peers shouldn't matter. Because the only thing that should matter is how much you care about the love that you and that person share. So I asked you the question. I know the answer, but I want the panel to hear the answer. I was there watching you do the things that you done. And at times it motivated me when I didn't want to go forward or to do this. It motivated me to continue to move forward. So it's important that you have like-minded people around you. We hear that all the time, but it's very important that you have like-minded people around you. It's great, and I can, my family, I know your family. We done met, unfortunately, in the visitation room, but I ask you these questions because of who you are and the person I know you to be. Mr. Parks is trying to get his sound system together, and I hope he does. But until
Where's the DJ there, man? Come on, DJ Parks, what's going on with the sound system, man?
You got you muted out, brother. You got us muted out. Let me see if I can do this. It ain't working.
Yeah.
My next question to you, Mr. Clifton, is this. It's not only to you; it's for anybody, Mr. Jones, Miss Bambi, anybody, Miss Obama. So you were able to be in a position, Mr. Clifton, to do the things that you've done. So you came home to a different type of relationship with your church. But what advice would you give the individuals that are not able to keep up with their children and do the things that you do because of hindrances that be beyond their control? Because you have a lot of men that, when they come in, things are taken. The wives have to, have to step up in roles and play wear four or five different hats when they are, now that you're gone. They didn't have to do this, but now they have to do that. They didn't have to do a lot of things, but now they're forced to take on the roles that that you left vacant in order to keep the family together. And because of that, they may not have the funds or the resources to send for phone calls or whatever the case may be. Sure, that guy works in prison and he gets some money, but that don't mean that she has a phone for him to be able to call on the other end, and they have to rely on what we call the snail mail. What advice would you give those individuals that's coming home to the children and they really, because at young age, children are impressionable and they
Yeah.
are about trying to want to play, want to do different things, and go outside, and they're not sitting down writing their father. That exceptional woman may tell them, every now and then, hey, sit down and write your father. Make them sit down and write their father, show pictures and do different things like that. But for the guys who can't do what you done,
Yeah.
what advice would you give them?
Man, I really think that not being able to communicate, if they had an address, I wrote tons and tons and tons of letters. You know what I'm saying? There's no way, man. Regardless if I heard anything back, I knew that I sent that letter. You know what so now my kids are reading the letters that they got that they didn't really understand when they were 10 years old, and they go back and read them now when they're 24 and 25 and 26, and they was like, man, Dad, you was trying to teach me things then. You know what I'm saying? They didn't know why, but I was, so now that they see that when they're at an age to where they can understand, they can look at the letters and see that I was still trying to be a father to them while I was in prison. So sometimes I didn't have the money to 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 send them, not necessarily make the phone calls because I was been in Unicorn since October 1997. So I was always, but like you say, the mom didn't have a phone at all time. But I wrote them. You know what I'm saying? I took time and I sit down and I wrote them. And that means a lot, man. I was always able to get a stamp. Regardless, I know that I sent the letters out. I sent the letters out. Sooner or later, it's going to sink in like, hey, my dad ain't giving up. You know what I mean? And the thing that we had, the thing that I had with their mom was that I was a strict disciplinary when I was on the street. That I want, like if I told them, oh, I want to see their grades. No, send me their grades. If they didn't get their grades, then I wrote and told her, hey, he can't do this. He can't play football or he can't play basketball this year because his grades is not up to par. And so when you can write home and do that, and if the mom is willing to and the mom honored that, then they know that dad got power still. You know what I mean? Hey, he grounded.
Well, it's important that you have the balance. I'm going to say this, then I'm going to let Lisa speak because she got her hand up, and then I want to read a comment from Miss Bo. She's watching, but it's important that the balance in the household is there. The mother has to keep the father alive, and if she wants the children to respect the father. She can't always speak negative of the father, or she doesn't enforce his rules, and she doesn't say, hey, this come from your father when he sends this. Those things is keeping the father alive and the child. She has to do that. So it was a great feat for her to honor his wishes. If she say, hey, take this, because some others say, well, he's not here and he don't have to deal with this, seeing him whining and crying and pounding on the floor, kicking around in circles, so I'm gonna, hey, just take it back. He's not here, so for her to do that, I commend her, because all this is a process, as Miss Bo said, that breaks up a lot of families. The system breaks up a lot of families, so, I can do nothing but commend the woman or the father that keep the other parent alive. Okay, Miss Lisa, I'm coming to you now.
I agree with everything you guys are saying. I want to share for myself. When I went to prison, my daughters were at the age where they needed me the most. They were going from teenagers to early adulthood. And my daughters had to go with my mom. And everybody was mad. I did something wrong. I went to prison for a drug crime, and I was a horrible person. So my daughters didn't have that strong, write your mom, communicate with your mom, and it did tear us apart. So what had to learn was when I came home, I had to get some counseling. I had to figure out how to fix this because now I have angry daughters and they were angry and they didn't understand why. Why did you do what you did? Why did you leave us? So I commend you for having the type of relationship that you can keep contact with your children. But for myself, it's tough, and it's years went by, and you're always working on that relationship. I never wanted to hurt my children. I never wanted to leave them, but it happened, and all I can do is try to fix it. And that's part of the trauma for them. So not only did I experience trauma in prison, my children experienced trauma with me going to prison. And, I think we often forget how much going to prison affects all of us, not just the one person. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. I wanted to share a couple comments, but I want to say that going away from prison is not natural. It's not natural for the child to be away from the parent that for that period of time. It's not natural for the child to come to a prison and see a parent behind a wall, or they can't hold hug the father for so long, or whatever the case may be. We can't get up and walk over to the other side of the room. All of that is not natural. So definitely I think that, some form of counseling or something may be needed in a lot of cases, but we have to put our pride aside and be willing to do that. Now, with that being said, I want to go into one of the comments that someone is asking on Facebook, and they're saying, and they're asking everybody's opinion. So I ask everybody to answer this question. Are families harder on women or men that are incarcerated? You can unmute yourself if you want to talk.
I think, go ahead, Lisa.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say that's tough. That would be on an individual thing. I would say for myself, being a woman, it's tougher on the woman, because I'm mom, and I will always know that as a mother, I had to leave my children because of my choices, but men, I'm sure it's just as hard.
Go ahead, Mr. Clifton, and then I'm going to comment.
Are the action is incarceration harder on the
our
men?
Families,
or
they're saying, are families harder on women or men that are incarcerated? They said opinions, please.
Well, here's the thing, Jane. I wouldn't know because you know what I'm saying. It's just, a man wouldn't really know because he don't really know the dynamics of what a woman goes through while she's incarcerated. You see what I'm saying? And
Right.
so and the vice versa, as a woman wouldn't know anything about what a man goes through when he's incarcerated.
Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm going to ask her to clarify that.
Yeah, tell her, clarify it, because a man wouldn't know.
More information on your question, because we're trying to answer it, but you're asking, are families harder on women or men that are incarcerated? Are you saying, do they treat them different? Are you saying when they come home? Give us more information on what you're saying. But in the meantime, what I'm going to say is coming home, trying to deal with children are very challenging. I'll say that, because, in prison, you disconnect from your emotions, and you disconnect from your emotions. I'm reading the comments while they're popping up, and I like to read them to y'all and ask y'all questions. But you disconnect from your emotions, and you have to, because you're in prison. You're not allowed to show any emotions, or you're considered weak, or you become prey, stuff like that there. So when you come home, it's, this is why, again, some of the times the counseling is good. You don't know how to turn your emotions back on. You done had them off for 10 years, 7 years, 20 years. And this is an everyday way of living. So when you see your child crying, you'll say, hey, get up. you're not saying, well, hey, what's wrong with you? You're not doing the nurturing or the considerate thing because you haven't done that in so many years, consciously or unconsciously. So that being said, I would share some of my personal experience. I wrote, and anybody that knows me in prison know, I try to do what's right. But just because I try to do what's right doesn't mean it's received as right. My child's mother, my son's mother, decided to go a different direction. She got married, and I'm happy for her. All that was great. But the relationship with my daughter wasn't what I would have liked it to have been. But like Mr. Clifton, it didn't stop me from writing or sending a card at a minimum of once every 2 weeks. After 20 years of doing that, when I did actually get an opportunity to meet see my son's mother, my daughter's mother face to face, she commended me on. She said, "You just never gave up." As he said, my daughter wasn't writing back, but I never gave up, and that was my way of staying relevant in my daughter's life. And she commended me for that. So it's important that we as mothers or fathers don't give up. Okay, now we got a response back from Miss Bo. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go from there. The expectation on men and women are generally different as parents. So just a general inquiry. What are the expectations on men and women who are separated from their families by incarceration? How do men and women address these expectations and experiences from prison? Need me to read that again? You got to unmute yourself, Mr. Clifton.
I think how I got to speak for me, because it wasn't, it weren't a lot of guys most of the guys were concerned about getting from day to day in prison. What people don't really realize, uh, being incarcerated is mentally challenging, and because you have so many different variables, man, that you got to be mindful of, or you could lose your life. You know what I mean? And so people don't want to admit to that. People never want to talk about that. A lot of guys, go in, they do the same thing, they play the same games, and they play those dangerous games. It's dangerous. Certain levels, man, it's dangerous for guys to do the things that they do in prison. I think it's challenging. You have to separate yourself from the madness that's going on around you. And when the doors close, like, even though I was a father at all times, but I had to go into survival mode, say for 9 years in the penitentiary, I had to go into survival mode. When the doors open, then I had to become that person who's going to survive until rack down time at night. So when it was rack down time, then I became the father. I picked up my pen, my pen and my pencil, and I tried to write my kids. You see what I'm saying? So it was challenging juggling the lifestyle in prison, because the library was never full. The rec yard was always full. You know what I'm saying? So it was just different choices. I wanted to be better while I was incarcerated, and I wanted to come out better after incarceration. And I know, but I still, during that whole time, I still wanted to be the best father I could be, under the circumstances that I were in. I think it's challenging more so for women, because children need children, even though they need both parents, by society standard, a child and mother, got a bond, man, that they truly need in order for them to be able to cope with society. If not, they're going to have a lot of issues. They're going to have a lot of behavioral issues, and a lot of times, even the same thing with little girls and their fathers and stuff. They're going to have, but not as many issues as a child without his mom if he's raised by his grandparent. And we see that in our school system right now today, how children of incarcerated parents act out because they want attention, the attention that they're not getting from their incarcerated parent. So I just think that it's tricky when we think about it, but I think they both have the same effect, because a single woman can't truly raise a man, can't teach a man how to be a man. She can raise him, but she can't really teach him the things that he needs to know to survive, you know. And some fathers can't, because they've never been taught that, how to pass it on. So what does he does? He passing down rituals and things that he go through on the street. He passed those down to his kids, and they just repeat. They just repeat the cycle. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Go ahead and let Miss Harris speak. Or
Okay. Before I go to Miss Harris, I'm gonna go to Mr. Jones because he said he had his hand up. So I wanted to go back. Then you have to unmute yourself, Mr. Jones. How you doing, sir?
Again, I'm well. I see that there's different interpretations of that question, just from Ms. Riley and Mr. Clifton. How I interpret it, my answer would be not going to prison, is that, and I'm not trying to be chauvinistic, but I think that a lot of times societies, we're more sympathetic to women's plight. I would think that it's like when a guy goes to prison, it's mostly, I ain't gonna say anybody. A lot of times it could be bad choices. That's a dumb way of saying it could be, but it's bad choices. When a woman, I always think of, and it's just me, sometimes she's been victimized, so I'm sympathetic to her cause, she's been victimized and she had to do something, and I'm not talking about those, I don't have any numbers, those gangsterous women or people that make bad decisions, but, I just think that, just like many other things in society, we're more sympathetic, or we're not softer, but we're more understanding with a woman, and we're more sympathetic because, yeah, she's a mother, she's leaving a child, and a man, we feel like he can address, he can handle. And again, I prefaced it by saying that I see there could be many interpretations, but I'm more sympathetic to a woman than a man, that goes to prison because of circumstances, life experiences, and just my thoughts, So that's what I wanted to put in that question.
Thanks for your comment. Now I'm gonna go to Miss Harris. You have to unmute yourself, Miss Harris. There you go. Good evening.
Hey, good evening, everybody. This is a great platform and a great topic. And as I was listening to some of the comments, and mostly some of the comments from you, Mr. Jones and Mr. Clifton, I can remember when I first heard you guys on the platform and having a husband that, did 11 plus years in federal prison. I'm the wife that didn't go through the whole process with him. We got married 2 years after he was out. So some of the things I can't speak to as far as the pre-prison type of things, but I can speak a lot to the actual, after prison. And so when I heard both of you guys on the platform for the first time, I told my husband, I said, hey, those guys, they have put in the work, even more, you guys are go-getters, you're doing this, you got this program, you're working. My husband was that type of person. And we connected because I'm a business, I ran a credit union. I teach business and those type of things. We automatically connected. And, we went to some heights. But what I saw and what was missing, because I never had this experience of being with somebody that was in prison. I never judged that about my husband, but the programming afterwards. Yes, you can put in the hours of working, but what are you doing? Like Mr. Clifton just said something that just stuck so close to me, because my husband told me of that story. He said, you just don't know the things we have to do to survive in there. So when you're having to turn something on, turn it off, and then you get out of prison and you're in that go-getter mode. I'm about my children. I'm about making money. I'm trying to catch up sometimes of the years that I lost, but you're losing the programming with counseling, because that wife have to deal with, you didn't work all night. You come home. You may be a little angry. We have to deal with all those things. And I know for my husband, he said a lot of his medical issues really started in prison. We had to deal with so much of that. And I was that person that just got in there and I was there with him. And our marriage may not be able to stand now because he didn't do the programming. And what I mean, yes, he did the things to stay off the streets, the work, to do this. But what I mean, programming is the counseling. And I won't speak to everything in this platform tonight, but if you guys know what I mean, sometimes when you had to turn it on and turn it off, it does something to you. And I just want to speak to, if I'm going to be on these platforms or give some of my opinions based off my experience, I'm just a big person on, you guys have the program after prison. And so I just wanted to speak to that and just put my opinion in about that.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. I want to share with Mr. Clifton. I'm not sure Mr. Clifton knows exactly who your husband is. You know who her husband is? You can just nod your head, Mr. Clifton. You know who her husband is? Okay. Um, Thanks for your comment. I want to say this to you that definitely the programming is important, because I try not to glorify my prison experiences because it's something that I want to put behind me. And it's not about, you know, trying to make it appear to be fun for individuals that are the younger audience that is watching. But I want to say that definitely it was abnormal, So we have to come home and get the programming, the counseling, so to speak. However, a lot of us that come home that has been gone for many years don't know where to get the programming from, where to start to get the programming from, and that is the reason why I started the Reinvention Center to help and assist people in doing that. So I'm trying to make it easier for them. I looked at what what I looked at the experiences of people around me and what was difficult, and I came up with something that can ease it for everybody. I understand that it doesn't start when you get home; it starts when you are in prison. So we are told when you first go in prison. At least I was. So I'm sure it's a lot of people, but I'm not saying all. I'm not making an absolute statement that to stay away from the psychology department. But the psychology department is where you go get this help that you're speaking of. So I stayed in the psychology department, and but again, it took me not to care about what others think about me, you know, um, so we definitely need to get it, but it starts on the inside. So everybody needs to encourage their loved ones to start from the inside, you know, um, and definitely if you have someone that's in the inside that you are trying to be in a relationship with, takes a lot of prayer. Y'all need to do a lot of praying together. Even if you're on the outside or on the inside, you gotta do a lot of praying together, because nobody's perfect. Everybody has their own ways and the way they see things, and go from there. And you're correct. He is correct. You will be amazed at what we go through as far as medical in the system. It's relatively nothing. Let me to put it bluntly, it's nothing. So I had a torn rotator cuff, and it took me a year to get a MRI on it. And then they said it was torn. It took me out and got me an operation, but it took a year. I was a guinea pig. They put me on Motrin, then they put me on gabapentin, which is a nerve medication. Then they put me on prednisone, which is a steroid. And they exhausted a year worth of nothing before they actually took me to get um, MRI for them to realize that my muscle was torn. I think they knew it before, but this is what they had to go through. So you don't get the help that you need when you're inside. So when you come home, I encourage everyone to get a full physical. When you get home, get a full physical. First and foremost, when you get home, go get your Medicaid, go get your food stamps, go get all that stuff that you can get so they can pay for all the stuff that you're going to need. They just took these years of your life. They can at least give you that. You just worked in the system for, like Mr. Clifton said, I forget how many years he worked in Unicor, but I worked in Unicor for 15 years, 15 consecutive years, making, $200, $300 a month, or more if I work more hours. I will work 600 hours a month and get $600, so $700, and I thought I was doing something, so I encourage people to, like you say, come home, get your Medicaid. Don't be afraid of that. Put aside your pride. Get the things that they have for you and utilize it. Because through that Medicaid, you can go get your counseling that you speak of. And they pay for. You can get your body checked out from head to toe, and you need that because we've been eating all this rotten meat, all this terrible food that they provide us, and it's supposed to be nutritious. And get your teeth checked out, because all they did there was pull teeth. They didn't do no, they're cleaning teeth, but you had to wait a year to get a clean, I believe it was. So get out, take care of yourself. Now with that, I want to read what Mr. Spook said. Ms. Harris, that was a great point, and I can say I agree with you after doing 12 years. And I don't have a wife or girlfriend, but that's all in all aspects. Great point again, Ms. Harris. I thank you, Ms. Harris, for your comments because, as you see, it's accomplishing its goal. I ask that next week that you also be someone that you attend the show because what I would like to do a topic of is relationships, personal relationships, the ups and downs, trials, tribulations of and when a person's coming home. The trials and tribulations for the woman that or the person that's been home and the person that's coming home. So we can speak on the person that's coming home, but we need some women like yourself. And Miss Obama, if she chooses to, I would like for her to come on if she chooses to, because we need that aspect from the person that's home, like yourself, that that has to deal with the things.
Attitudes,
You hear me? Say it again.
the attitudes and cockiness.
Have to deal with that, because we coming home and we're stuck in our way. We kind of like have tunnel vision. In a lot of ways we have tunnel vision. And next week we'll touch on that tunnel vision. But definitely I would like to understand how it affects you strong women that deal with guys or strong men that deal with women that's coming home from prison. So I definitely ask and we'll look forward to y'all doing that. Anything else you want to say, Mr. Clifton?
No, I was saying, you know how much they have to put up with our BS. You know what I mean? I guess we're so used to having our way inside from.
Hold on, Mr. Clifton. I hear somebody down the street holler yes. But go ahead, bro.
Police.
Holler yes, man. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, but yeah, but it's not intense. It's not necessarily intentional. It's just that because we're such visionaries, and we're such visionaries that sometimes when we see an idea, we don't see the obstacles. We see the obstacles as stepping stones. You know what I mean? And so a lot of times people who don't know us fully, not necessarily our significant other, we just the thing is we see a mess, man, and we can see a Picasso painting. It just how we can look through the muddy water because we've done it with nothing. We took some of the worst resources and some of the smallest things and done great things inside with them. You know what I mean? Look at some of the programs that we used to do, and some of the programs that we were a part of in education on the rec yard. Even when the staff said it couldn't be done, man, we could look past everything that they said we were going to have a problem with and make it a success. And so sometimes we come home with that same cockiness, and people have to understand our vision, until we can level out the playing field where they can see our visions, through their eyes. Then until we can do that, then we're still going to be, because one thing about it, we don't take no for an answer when we see things. When we want to do something, no, we're not going to do that.
You're gonna make no excuse neither. We're gonna make it happen.
Yeah.
Definitely that. And let me say this with you. Miss Bo asked another question, and she's saying so many men and women are in prison. So many men and women in prison are artists and visionaries. Why do they end up in prison? I think that they are in prison before they actually realize what potential that they actually have in themselves. It's in prison that they come to fruition with the fact that, hey, I can do this. Because when I'm in the street I don't, he's not on here, but I wish he was, because he probably would have had a better answer for this, but I'm going to use that for an example. Not saying it's true, just an example. When I'm in the street and I'm out here and I'm ripping and running the street and I'm doing what I'm doing, hanging out with the boys, I don't have time to sit down and paint no portraits, but when I go to prison, what happens is I'm forced to be able to have all the time in the world to sit down and paint a portrait. So we find out, we knew what we can do before we went to prison, but we actually critique it and bring it to its peak while we're in prison. So I think that a lot of us, men and women, actually understand, because I told people before that the federal government seen my potential before I even recognized my own potential. And they were saying, hey, I need to get this guy off of the street before he recognizes his potential and creates a lot of havoc. So that happens all the time, where when we go in, we don't really understand our potential because we're young I don't want to use the term, but dumb and whatever. But we haven't really came to understanding the grips with who we are.
Then another thing too, James. What people don't realize, everybody, uh, everybody in prison is not guilty. I'm not saying that they weren't criminals before. I just think that people don't realize the sentencing scheme that's designed to keep us, us as a people down, or you know what I mean, and out of the system, because we have such great potential in systems. We have such potential. So they got a sentencing scheme that they can use and pull out on us to give us more time to make sure that we don't educate people who look like us to live up to their full potential. You see what I'm saying? And then so many dudes, the ones who come in and think that they can become a better criminal while they're in prison, they let them right back out because they know one thing. What they're going to do, they're going to go out and bring me 15 more like them. You see what I mean? So, but people like us, they don't want to let us out. They're going to make us fight tooth and nail to get out because they know that once we get out of their grips, we're going to deter other people from getting, to teach them how to sidestep and then do. There's no shortcut to success. And so that's one of the difference too. So people have to stop making a mistake that all people who are incarcerated are guilty. You know what I mean? They might have been one time. They might have been, one time criminal, but they don't necessarily live. They're fully guilty of the charge, especially with the ghost dope and so much other stuff, the relevant conduct that they use to enhance us. You know what I mean?
I think that a lot of family members, until they actually go through this with a family member or a loved one, they don't really understand how the system really is and how easy it is to get incarcerated, how easy it is for a person to get lost in the system. How the system really don't do anything or do relatively nothing to rehabilitate a person. If you want to do better, you have to do better on your own. You have to find ways to do it. So I agree with Miss Bo, Corey Shear spoke. I agree with y'all when you say we have to be visionaries, because we have to be creative and find creative ways to accomplish the goals that we set out to accomplish. It's no easy task to make a transition in prison because the prisons don't have programs like people may think that we have, So, I just want people to know that, it's not that, but again, I want to leave on this note because time restraints have us having to go. Next week, I want to speak on relationships when people are coming home from prison. How does it affect the individual that's home? Speaking of the women or men that's home and have individuals coming home from prison, and how difficult it is for an individual that's coming home from prison to transition back into a relationship. It's easy to go get a job because I've been working a job for 20 years in prison. It's easy to do a lot of things that I've been doing in prison to go get, as we have said. But being in a relationship, that's something that we don't have in prison. An intimate relationship. So so next week I want to pick up there on the relationships. The how do you deal with the relationship coming home from prison? So please, Miss Harris, please, Miss Obama, and anybody else, that would like to come, Felicia, if you want to speak. Bambi, everybody that may have some experience in that. I ask that you, and if you know somebody else that not on here that may have some experience, ask them to invite them to come because we want as many opinions as possible. I definitely thank everybody for coming. Definitely thank everybody for their comments, and thank you for your time. But with that, we're going to close, and I'll look forward to seeing y'all again next Sunday at 6:00. Hey, Nikki Williams finally popped on. I forget, was it Macomb, Mississippi? That's the mayor of Macomb. That's who that is. Y'all have a good night, and I'll talk to everybody later. All right, bye.